Mr. Kwek Ling Ju, President, Global Compact Network Singapore. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Very good morning to you, and most happy to be here with you as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Global Compact Network Singapore. To some of the guests who have come from afar, we welcome you. And we welcome you very shortly joining us as we celebrated our National Day about 2 weeks ago. And it's, I think, very appropriate for us to, at this juncture, as we celebrate 50th anniversary, to also celebrate the achievement of Singapore in sustainable development. I would just like to point out 2 examples. I think the first would be the way that we have developed our clean and green environment. As you can see, as you walk around the city, you will find that we are truly a very green country. And we started clean and green before this phrase became even fashionable, before the CSR became fashionable. It was about, in a small island, land-scarce, high-intensity living, to create a very livable environment, a quality living environment for the people, and also to distinguish ourselves as an investment destination. And so we moved from garden city to city in a garden to what we have today, vertical greening, green building. It was a pursuit of a sustainable future, having industrialization, development, coexisting with people, with factories, with operations, with commercial buildings, living harmoniously, situated harmoniously with houses, with residential area, with parks and recreation spaces. Another example would be how we have developed catchment area in Singapore. From a country with very little water resources, where water was part of a separation agreement with Malaysia as we declared independence, we have created a beautiful marina barrage. It was for increasing the catchment area, it was increasing the capacity of the country to catch and to catch water, to save water, to store water, but it was also a flood mitigation initiative. So as you know, we are subjected to tidal, and Singapore River basin around it is sometimes a victim of torrential rain. So with the barrage, with the gate, we were able to adjust the water level such that we are, in a way, able to mitigate tides on the water level within the city, and has allowed us to reduce the occurrence of floods. These initiatives require long-term, very, very long-term planning, but it also is a reflection of the development of Singapore, because as we became an independent country, we didn't have substantive economic activities. So it was very much government sector, public sector taking the lead in the industrialization process, in the development process. So if you recall, some of the bigger companies in Singapore would be government-related, Keppel Corp, Sembcorp, Singtel, PSA. They were all part of the government before. But as we developed, we are seeing new, big, stable, strong Singapore companies evolving in the last few decades. And I think it is very timely for Compact to now take a greater role in galvanizing the resources and the engagement of Singapore corporates in sustainable development of Singapore. So on this 10th anniversary, I think it is very timely for us to take note, and also to note the evolution of corporate sector, and also the role the corporate sector should play in the development of Singapore going forward. So Mr. Kwek has rightly pointed out that in September, the international community will have a new set of sustainable development goals for the next 15 years. And also in December, all countries will be meeting in Paris to work towards COP21, also known as 2015 Paris Climate Conference. So although Singapore is a small country, contributing only 0.11% of the global emission of greenhouse gases, we are part of the global community and we must not neglect our responsibility. The impact of climate change and extreme weather conditions cuts across borders and regions. Hence, Singapore has committed to state our targeted carbon emissions cuts to the UNFCCC's framework. Just last month, we submitted our intended nationally determined contribution to the UNFCCC Secretariat. Our commitment is that Singapore will reduce our emissions intensity by 36% from 2005 levels by 2030 and stabilize emissions with the aim of peaking around 2030. In order to meet these targets, a large part of our efforts will have to come from the industries and businesses, especially those with energy-intensive operations. Our business community must collaborate and work hand in hand with the government to reduce our emissions. Besides the need to strengthen our existing regulations, we need to harness new and best-in-class technologies and tap on our limited options for alternative energy sources like solar power to become more energy and carbon efficient. This is in line with the Sustainable Singapore Blueprint 2015, which sets out our national vision and plans for sustainable development in Singapore. As we celebrate SJ50 this year, we should certainly evaluate these issues which will shape the lives of current and future generations of Singaporeans. Thus, it is very apt and timely that the theme of this year's summit is evaluating and evolving CSR, creating value for a sustainable future. There has been a growing awareness of corporate responsibility and sustainability over the past decade in Singapore. This can be seen in the Global Compact Network Singapore's membership, which has grown by 200% since 2005. As Mr. Kwek mentioned in his address earlier, the number of Singapore companies that are signatories to the UN Global Compact stands at 66 today. I'm also heartened to note that 15 years after the inception of the UN Global Compact, 25% of the world's largest companies are now signatories to this voluntary set of responsible business principles. It gives me hope that we are on the right track to resolve some of the biggest sustainability challenges that the world is facing today. However, believers of corporate sustainability are still in the minority. For sustainability to become part of the business DNA, it requires corporate leaders who have the courage and will to incorporate sustainability issues into the company's agenda, to develop a corporate vision geared towards sustainable growth. We need more business leaders to step up to effect much needed change, working hand in hand with governments, regulators, and civil society to achieve a more sustainable future. So why is corporate responsibility and sustainability necessary? For businesses, CSR builds up goodwill with their stakeholders, reach out to a generation which is increasingly concerned with values. Consumers are increasingly willing to pay more for products and services provided by companies that are committed to positive social and environmental impact. And according to the 2014 Nelson Global Survey on Corporate Social Responsibility, 64% of consumers in Asia Pacific had a propensity to buy from socially responsible brands. This is also true in the workplace, where millennials or Gen Y prefer to work for a business with a heart and expect businesses to have a positive impact on wider society. It is therefore imperative and make good business sense for companies to incorporate CSR into their business identities to stay relevant and to ensure sustainable growth into the future. I appreciate the efforts put in by the Compact and its partners in organizing the inaugural Singapore APEC CSR Award this year as a means to showcase CSR excellence in Singapore. Companies with exemplary CSR and sustainability practices should be acknowledged as role models for other companies. The winners will be announced later, I understand. I would just like to take this opportunity to congratulate the winners in advance. I would also like to congratulate our winners for the Young CSR Leaders Award. I hope that you will continue to contribute responsibly to the environment and the community as you become change leader of the future. I would also like to express my appreciation to the team in Global Compact Network Singapore for your efforts in promoting CSR in Singapore and for organizing this summit. I encourage all corporate leaders and representatives to give back to our community and to adopt sustainable business practices as we bring Singapore beyond SG50. And in response to Mr. Quek's requirement or requests for the ministries to be perhaps coordinating ourselves, I would like to urge business leaders here to consider the fact that you can actually approach many ministers for a CSR initiative, because every one of us have a stake in CSR in many, many ways. Just look around us. Ministry of Transport, green transportation, we are very much interested in carbon emission. Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, both on the environment side and the water resources side. Ministry of National Development, on green building, on planning, on greening the country. And MCCY, social responsibility. How do you engage the youth to be more involved, more engaged in the future of Singapore? So actually, I don't see that as a weakness. I see that it is the strength that many of the ministries, many of the ministers are very, very keen to see that Singapore develops into the future in a sustainable way, because in Singapore, that's the only way. Thank you very much and have a very fruitful meeting.